This started about 2 weeks ago when my sister's boyfriend proposed to her and asked her to move in with him. Earlier this week, she planned an engagement party without inviting me, which was the tipping point for me. We had a heated argument when I asked her why she hadn't invited me, especially since I had supported her and let her live with me rent-free for the previous year. I had previously allowed my unemployed sister to stay for free, but after she got engaged, she blocked me. So I canceled my agreement to help her fiancé with rent. For perspective, Janet, my sister, lost her job as a copywriter after her firm announced major layoffs. She tried freelancing for a while, but it didn't pay well, and eventually she couldn't get a job. She told me that an idiot like me was no help in the first place, and that she didn't want to stay in touch with me any longer because she had had enough of me. Of course, it was completely disrespectful and ungrateful. So I called off my little deal with her guy. She is now constantly apologizing, but I don't need it. I was the only family member in Janet's immediate vicinity for the past year, so I've allowed her to stay with me without paying rent because my husband and I make enough money to cover it. She was kicked out of her apartment and had to come to me. Previously, she and I had an acceptable relationship. We weren't particularly close, but I let her move in because I felt sorry for her. She was clearly going through a difficult time and needed all the help she could get. Our mother lives far away with our brother, so she couldn't help. And she wasn't able to help with household chores or money, and this is how she chose to pay me back. Naturally, I was upset because I could tell she was getting better in the last few months because she started spending more time with her friends. However, she refused to take a job, spending the money our mother sent her as an allowance or depleting her savings until she found something worthwhile. I thought it was strange that a woman in her mid-20s would live that way since she was obviously no longer struggling mentally, so I started pressuring her to find employment, which resulted in a lot of arguments. When I found out last month that I was pregnant, my husband and I decided she couldn't live with us any longer because it would be too much work, and we wanted to turn her room into a nursery. Fortunately, we didn't need to have that conversation with her because a few days after I found out I was pregnant, Janet's boyfriend Caleb approached me. She wanted me to stop bothering her and get off her back, but I thought she was wasting money because she refused to listen to my advice, even though it was sound, and said he needed help picking out a ring because he was going to pop the question. They had been together for 4 years, and he had been there for her through thick and thin. He was a good man, and Janet hadn't moved in with him earlier because they worked in the same department and were laid off at the same time. He had also had a tough year. However, a few months ago, he found a new job, and he told me that he wanted to live with his parents for the first few months of their engagement. Once he found an apartment he liked and had saved enough money, he would move in and invite Janet to join him. Funds had suffered greatly because he was no longer living rent-free with his parents like Janet did. Since I really wanted Janet to move out, I suggested that he find an apartment, move in, and then propose to her. That way, everything would work out. He was worried about the costs, but I assured him that I would cover half of Janet's rent for the first few months until she found employment. I came up with this plan because I had to leave the house as soon as possible before the start of my second trimester, so perhaps it was I didn't give it much thought because, little sly, I would rather not ruin my already bad relationship with Janet by bringing up the unpleasant subject of her staying with us in this way. Within a few weeks, Caleb had found an apartment, and he and I had come to an agreement, and everything went exactly as I had anticipated. Janet moved out a few days after getting engaged, but as soon as she had a ring on her finger and a place to stay, her attitude toward me changed drastically, and I could tell something wasn't right, even though I never imagined she would exclude me. She called me a fool and said that I had not been helpful at all after everything I had done for her at her engagement party. She said that I had only put pressure on her recently, which caused her undue anxiety, and that she was relieved to be gone. She blocked me because she wanted nothing to do with me anymore. I was obviously annoyed, so I called Caleb and told him that I was canceling our little deal because Janet was clearly ungrateful and I didn't need to worry about her any longer. Dot is not my child, so I don't have to feel bad about that. It also put Caleb in a tough situation, but I was so upset that I didn't care. A few days later, Janet unblocked me and started to apologize, but yesterday, my mother called and told me that I was being really irrational. She said that what I had done was strange and pointless, and that I didn't need to manipulate Janet and Caleb to get Janet out of my house. I could have just sat her down and had an honest conversation with her. Everything would have been straightforward. Although I don't think my mother was entirely incorrect, I defended myself by saying that Janet had been really difficult to deal with for the past few months, and I would rather not add to my stress by trying to have that conversation, because I knew Janet wouldn't handle it well unless she had somewhere to go. My mother also claimed that by withdrawing from the transaction, she was creating unnecessary problems for Caleb, who was completely innocent of the problem, but I couldn't bring myself to care about it either. I guess she's right, which is why I've been considering it so much. I'm not sure if I should back out of the deal because that would make me a big jerk, but I also don't want to help Janet, especially after what she said to me, basically calling me a stupid person after I've done so much for her over the past year. I'm in a big bind right now and would really appreciate some good advice. Am I wrong for pulling out of the deal and creating issues for my sister and her fiancé? I'd like to thank everyone who responded to my post after much discussion. Since Caleb is the only person I owe an explanation to in this situation, I decided to talk to him about it. He did everything I asked of him because he trusted me, and I would rather not put him in a difficult situation. So I told him that I would continue to help him financially, but that if Janet finds work, I would like all of the money returned. This is just a one-time favor for Janet, and I would rather not interact with her again. Even though this contact was solely between Caleb and me, I didn't want him caught in the middle of Janet and me. Caleb is a really nice guy, and as I mentioned, I don't think it's fair to leave him hanging, especially given his financial situation. He seemed relieved when I called him, telling me that he understood how angry I was, but that he was thankful that I didn't back out of the transaction, which would have put him in a terrible situation. He also encouraged me to make amends with Janet, but that's where I draw the line. I don't want anything to do with my family at the moment, including my mother, even though she made a valid point about how I could have simply told Janet the truth about my pregnancy and asked her to leave. But she doesn't realize that I had tried to be courteous to her for a long time because Janet made things very difficult for me. In addition, my mother was providing her with a monthly allowance, even though I warned her repeatedly that this was keeping Janet from becoming independent. I warned her that her actions would ensure that Janet never found employment or got back on her feet, but she ignored me. So I believe I'm a complete idiot, because in the end I feel like I'm being taken advantage of by my family, because Janet obviously used me to get a place to live for free without paying for it or helping out with chores. My mother essentially used me to support Janet while ignoring my feelings. If she had cared, she would have followed my advice and encouraged Janet to seek employment instead of giving her free money. She wasn't even excited about my pregnancy. Instead, she was more worried about Janet's health and didn't congratulate me. Simply put, even though I feel terrible about what's happening with my family, I'm not going to allow it to get in the way of my life. I'm starting a new path as a mother, and I want to start on a positive one. I don't want any negativity in my life right now. So I've decided to stop talking to my mother and sister. I won't lie, it will be difficult, but aside from them, my family consists of my in-laws. My father died in an accident when I was 7 years old, and his parents passed away soon after, so we don't have much contact with his family, and I'm not close to any of my other relatives. It's been 5 weeks since my last update, and my mother unexpectedly showed up today. I had the day off, so I spent it at home. As I was about to leave work, I heard the doorbell ring, and as I was about to leave, I saw my mother. Janet and I had a close relationship as children, but as we grew older, we became farther apart. Recently, I thought we were getting back together, but something happened, and now I think I'd be better off without them. Even though I'll be lonely, at least I won't be stressed. She said she had come because Janet wanted her to meet Caleb's parents in a more intimate setting, so they had a family meal she had traveled for. Now that she knew I was pregnant, I guess she felt compelled to visit me rather than leave. Normally, she prefers to stay in her hometown and finds traveling or spending the night anywhere unpleasant. Her last visit was brief, lasting only 1 day to attend Janet's engagement party, and she flew back home the following morning, so we didn't even get to meet. As soon as she was standing right outside my door, I had to let her in because she had been trying to reach me on a regular basis for the past few weeks, but I couldn't pretend that I hadn't heard the phone ring or that I was busy. She apologized for her previous action, but she also thought that my actions were strange and unnecessary, saying that it was very typical of me to make plans behind someone's back just to get them out of my house when I could have had an honest conversation with them. I had to explain to her that Janet and I had been having problems for months and that I didn't want to make things worse. Even at that time, I was trying to be a better person by avoiding drama. I had gone out of my way to help Janet so that she didn't end up in a situation where she had nowhere else to turn, which is why I had to take these precautions. If she had checked on me as frequently as she did, Janet obviously had no idea what things were like from my perspective. I did tell her that she was right, just as I had previously, and claimed that even though we fought a lot, I should have simply told Janet that I was pregnant and asked her to leave her room. She probably would have handled it well, and if she didn't, I should have taken my chances instead of going out of my way to create a living space that favored her in order to avoid arguments or drama. At the time, my mother had the wisdom to say nothing more and left it at that. However, I was already becoming irritated, so I was very dry with I'm not sure what to make of this conversation, but at least we got it out of the way. She eventually assured me that she understood why I was still unhappy with her and that I had every right to be, but she was the baby's grandmother and desperately wanted things to get back to normal. She asked me to stop ignoring her because she wanted to stay in touch and see how my pregnancy was going. I told her that I'd think about it, but right now I just needed some space. At this point, she left. I'm not entirely ignoring her like I used to, but I'm taking my time because I'm still unhappy with how things turned out for my family. If she wants to stay in touch with her granddaughter, at least until the next grandchild arrives, if you understand what I mean, at least I'm not as upset as I was before, which is an improvement. Update 3. Hello. It's been 3 weeks since my last update. My mother has been trying to get in touch with me constantly, and I've been answering her texts and returning her calls whenever I feel like it. I feel like things with my mother have slightly improved, but my relationship with Janet has stayed mostly the same. We are still emotionally distant and don't communicate. I haven't spoken to her since I last spoke with Caleb, but he did tell me that Janet has finally found work and will start paying me back in the coming weeks. I'm not sure why it took her so long to get back on her feet, but I'm glad it's happening for her own good. And to be honest, I'm glad I won't have to deal with this mess any longer because my baby is my top priority right now. The pregnancy is going well, though morning sickness has already set in, which has been the hardest challenge so far. Despite this, I'm thrilled to be a mother. My husband, who knows that I don't get along well with my family right now, has gone above and beyond to keep me happy and distracted. His family has been incredibly supportive, especially my mother-in-law, and I feel incredibly fortunate to have such a supportive mother. Law. Has been visiting me a lot, taking care of me, making sure I don't overwork myself, and even starting to cook for us. I can't even begin to describe how helpful that has been. I'm sad that my mother isn't doing anything for me other than trying to stay in touch, but I guess that's just the way she is. If Janet had been pregnant, I'm sure my mother would have flown in and moved in with her. So I'm glad I'm not Janet, because I doubt I could have compromised my privacy in that way. Update 4. Hello. It's been 2 weeks since my last report, and today I got my first payment from Janet. She messaged me to say that she got her first paycheck a few days ago, and that she thought it was time to start paying me back for all of the support and assistance I had given her during the past year when she was having difficulty. She'd also apologized for her previous behavior and said she hoped we could rekindle our friendship. I felt uncomfortable and emotional after reading that, so I thanked her and told her that I wanted the same thing. There are still payments to make, but I hope she doesn't sending any more heartfelt messages like this. Honestly, just makes me feel awful about everything that happened, which I don't need right now. I just want to be happy and enjoy this time in my life. I would rather not dwell on the past. Speaking of which, as my pregnancy progresses, my mother called me earlier this week to ask how I felt about her coming to visit me every other weekend. She suggested that she take the bus and travel on alternate weekends to help me, because flights would be too costly for frequent travel. So the bus would have to first and foremost, no matter how much she wants to come see me and help, I know it would be very uncomfortable for her to travel in that manner due to her back and knee problems, which is why she doesn't travel often. And when she does, she takes flights, even if they are only 45 minutes. I would rather not cause her any discomfort. So that was one of the reasons I said no. She also claimed it wouldn't be too difficult because it's only a 6-hour drive from her home to mine. So I thought about it, but I ultimately declined. I know she'll want to stay at my place, but I would rather not give up my privacy, especially with the baby on the way. My spouse and I work hard and rarely have time to see each other during the week. I'm trying to finish up all of my work before leaving on maternity leave, and he's working extra hours for a raise. She usually stays in hotels because she enjoys the luxury and makes her trips feel like vacation. But now that I'm pregnant, she will want to stay with me, want to waste them. But I knew my mother really wanted to see me, so I came up with another plan. I told her that she could come visit us on the last weekend of every month, which would allow her to spend more time with us instead of having to fly every other weekend. We came to this arrangement because it seemed to work for both of us, even though my husband and I would still have to miss one of our weekends. My mother-in-law agreed with this strategy because, at the end of the day, family is important, and as much as I tried to conceal the fact that I miss having a good relationship with my family, of course, what had happened was unacceptable, and I had every right to be angry. But if they were trying, and I wanted to give them another chance, that was great for me too. For this reason, I think it's a great idea, and I sincerely hope I can work things out with my mother. My sister's condition is still unresolved, but I don't mind. She seems to be doing well for herself. At least I hope so, and I am too at the moment. These small differences don't bother me. I just want to make sure. I will do whatever makes me happy, because if I'm happy, my baby is happy, or so I've heard. LOL update 5. Hello. It's been a few months since my last post, and I finally had time to write because I've been busy with my baby for the past few weeks. She was born 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't be happier. My mother and I continued the arrangement we established in my previous report, and she began coming to see me. She stayed with me on the last weekend of every month, which was pleasant, and she sincerely apologized for not being a good mother to me. She acknowledged that she had not been a good mother to me, and that she wanted to make amends, not only for her grandson, but also because it was the right thing to do. She also told me that she loves me and Janet equally, but that she had been a little biased in the past year because Janet had been struggling, which may have been why she asked me to be kinder to her. She didn't realize that she was treating me unfairly. She also apologized for this, but a lot of time has gone by, and I decided to forgive her. We've decided to try to improve our relationship and work on it. Janet had been paying me back in installments, and last month, she made her final payment. During this time, she didn't send me any more heartfelt texts than she had the first time, but she contacted me to say she wanted to talk and work things out between us, and that she wanted to apologize for what she had done. I decided to invite her over, and she broke down when she arrived. She apologized, said she had been in a difficult emotional state that led to her acting out, and reassured me that I wasn't the idiot. She said she was ungrateful and that I didn't deserve anything that had happened. She was thrilled that I agreed to speak with her and Janet, and I decided to try to mend our relationship. Maybe in time, we'll be as close as we were as kids. Janet has been visiting often since the birth of my daughter, and my daughter loves her Aunt Janet, which makes me happy because, as I previously mentioned, my baby has truly brought almost everyone was there for me during my labor and delivery, and that day will always be the most memorable of my life. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and click the notification bell to stay updated. Her birth stinks to have fueled everything updated with more startling real-life information stories that are taking place all around you.